Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. Audiobook by Cinna. Chapter 31. Reality, and the rank odor of a decomposing animal, intruded. Darkness had descended.
"Let's go,"
Valek said, pulling me to my feet. "Where?" I asked, adjusting my uniform.
"To Commander's room, so we can take him back to the castle with us."
Valek brushed the straw from his hair and clothes. "Won't work."
"Why not?"
Valek demanded. "As soon as you touch him, Maken will know." I explained about Maken's link with the commander, and how he had established that connection using Qdoyle.
"How do we break the bond?"
Valek asked. It was time to tell him about my magic. I felt lightheaded, as if I stood on the edge of the world. Taking a deep breath, I related the encounters and conversations I'd had with Irys, and how she might be able to help us. Valek stood still for a full minute, while my heart thumped madly in my chest.
"Do you trust her?"
He asked. "Yes."
"Is there anything else you haven't told me?"
My head spun. So much had happened, and we still needed to stop a powerful magician. Death was a real possibility. I wanted Valek to know how I felt. "I love you." Valek wrapped me in his arms.
"My love has been yours since the Fire Festival. If those goons had killed you, I knew then that I would never be the same. I didn't want or expect this, but I couldn't resist you."
I molded my body to him, wanting to share his skin. He took my hand.
"Let's go."
We raided the guard room for uniforms before slipping into the hallway. Wearing Brazel's colors of black and green, we hoped to avoid discovery as we stole through the manor. Valek needed his bag of tricks, so we headed toward the barracks. While I retrieved my cloak, Valek slid inside the empty wooden building. The soldiers had gone to search for us. I paced in the shadows of the building, chanting Irys's name in my mind. We needed a plan of attack. We had to move tonight. Shouts and curses emanated from the barracks. Running inside, I found Irys and Janco with their swords drawn and pointed at Valek. "Stop," I said. Spotting me, Irys and Janco sheathed their weapons, smiling.
"We thought Valek had escaped without you,"
Irys said, giving me a bear hug.
"Aren't you supposed to be with the search party?"
Valek asked as he pulled his black bag from under a bunk. He had changed into an ebony coverall with numerous pockets.
"We're too sick,"
Janco said, his best smirk in place. "What?" I asked.
"The charges against you are obviously fabricated, so we refuse to take part in the hunt,"
Janco said.
"That's insubordination."
Valek extracted a long knife and some darts from his bag.
"That was the point. What's a fellow have to do around here in order to get arrested and thrown in the dungeon?"
Janco asked. I stared at Janco in amazement. They had been willing to risk a court-martial in order to help me. He had meant what he had inscribed on my switchblade.
"Which direction did the search parties go?"
Valek asked. He placed weapons in various pockets and strapped his sword and knife onto his belt.
"Mainly south and east, although a few small groups were sent west and north,"
Irys replied.
"Dogs?
"Yes.
And the manor?"
Minimal coverage."
"Good, you're with us."
Valek ordered them both. They snapped to attention.
Yes, sir."
"Prep for covert ops, but keep the swords. You're going to need them."
Valek finished dressing as Irys and Janco got ready. "Wait," I said. "I don't want them getting into trouble." My heart started to skitter around in my chest, and a nauseous wave threatened to send bile up my throat, as fear of what we were planning to do overcame me. Valek squeezed my shoulder.
"We need their help."
"You're going to need more than that."
Irys's voice came out of the darkness. 3 men simultaneously drew their swords. When she stepped into the weak lantern light, Valek relaxed, but Irys and Janco brandished their weapons.
"At ease,"
Valek ordered. Seeing their reluctance, I said, "She's a friend. She's here to help." I looked at her. We discovered Maken's extra power source.
"What is it?"
I told her about the mindless captives and how they had been chained in circles, and then explained my theory that Maken had wiped their minds to seize their power. Horror and revulsion touched her face. Despite her rough exterior, her concern went deep. She managed to regain her no-nonsense frown, but Ari and Janco looked a little green, as if they were going to be sick.
What's this all about?
Ari asked. I'll explain it later. Right now, I stopped short. A complete plan of attack snapped into my mind, but it included Ari and Janco. I had been hoping to keep them safe, but Valek was right. We needed their help. I want you to protect Irys with everything you have. It's very important, I told my friends.
Yes, sir.
Ari and Janco said together. Stunned, I stared at them. They had addressed me as Sir, meaning they would follow my orders, even if it led to their death. Valek's eyes drilled into mine.
You have a strategy?
Yes.
Tell us.
Why? I thought, as Valek and I crept through the silent empty halls of the manor. Had I opened my mouth? My plan? What did I know? Valek, Ari, and Janco had years of experience doing this nerve-wracking, stomach-turning work, but everyone risked their necks following my plan. In the dark corridor, I swallowed my fear and reviewed the strategy. At the commander's door, we waited to give the others time to move into position. My short breaths seemed to echo off the walls, and I felt as if I was either going to scream or pass out. After a few moments, Valek picked the lock and we slipped inside. He secured the door. Lighting a lantern, he moved toward the oversized four-poster bed. The commander was stretched out on top of the bedding, fully clothed. His vacant eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. He made no acknowledgement of our presence. I sat beside him and took his hand in mine. Following Irys's brief instructions, I imagined my brick wall, then expanded it until I had built a dome of brick that encompassed us both. Valek pressed against the wall next to the door, waiting for Maken. His expression had hardened into his battle face. He was stone cold on the exterior, but I knew that a lethal molten fury resided within. It wasn't long before a key turned in the lock. Silence. Then the door burst open. 4 armed guards rushed in. Valek had one down before the man could react. The ringing of swords filled the room. Maken slinked into the chamber after his men had Valek fully engaged. Avoiding the fighting, he moved toward me. A condescending smile touched his lips.
A brick igloo. How nice. Come on, Yelena, give me some credit. A stone fortress or a steel wall would have been more of a challenge.
I felt a solid blow strike my mental defenses. Brick crumbled. Patching holes as he hammered on my shield, I prayed with desperation that Ari, Janco, and Irys had made it to the room where Maken kept the prisoners chained. Irys had explained that she needed to be there with them in order to block Maken's extra power. Even if she succeeded, I would still have to deal with Maken's own magic. Halting his attack for a second, Maken jerked his head to the side, staring off into the distance.
Nice trick,
he said.
Friends of yours? They're in Raylan's hallway, but unless they can fight their way through 10 men, they won't make it to my children.
My heart sank. Maken resumed his onslaught with renewed determination. 1 guard out of 4 remained in battle with Valek. Hurry, I thought. My defenses weakened with each blow. I threw every ounce of strength into my wall, but it collapsed into a cloud of dust. Maken's power gripped me like a giant's fist around my ribcage. I yelped in pain and dropped the commander's hand. I stood on weak legs beside the bed, just as Valek yanked his sword from the last guard's dead body.
Stop or she dies,
Maken ordered. Valek froze. 3 more guards hustled into the room, Brazel on their heels. They surrounded Valek. Taking his sword, they forced him to his knees, with his hands on his head.
Go ahead, General. Kill her,
Maken said, stepping back to let Brazel pass.
I should have let you slit her throat the first day she arrived.
Why listen to Maken? I asked Brazel. He's not to be trusted. Pain crawled along my spine as Maken turned his burning eyes upon me.
What do you mean?
Brazel demanded. He gripped his sword as he glanced from me to Maken. Maken laughed.
She's only trying to delay the inevitable.
Like when you tried to delay the city and treaty negotiations by poisoning the cognac? Or were you aiming to stop the delegation altogether? I asked him. Maken's shock revealed his guilt. Although surprise touched Valek's face, he remained silent. His body tensed, ready to spring into action.
That doesn't make sense,
Brazel said. Maken wants to avoid contact with the Southerners. They would know about— My throat closed. I clawed at my neck, unable to breathe. Brazel turned on Maken. His square face creased with anger.
What have you been up to?
We don't need a treaty, Cydia. We were getting our supplies without any problems. But you wouldn't listen to me. You had to be greedy. After establishing a trade treaty, it would only be a matter of time before we'd have Southerners crossing the border, sniffing around, finding us.
Maken showed no fear of Brazel, only anger that he had to explain his actions.
Now, do you want to kill her or should I?
Spots spun in my eyes as my vision blurred. Before Brazel could answer, Maken staggered. His hold on me slipped slightly, releasing my airway. I gasped for air.
My children!
Maken roared.
Even without them, I still have more power than you.
Like a fish on a hook, I was yanked off my feet and hurled against the wall. My head banged on the stone. Pinned in mid-air, Maken's power pelted me. Each blow felt like a boulder crashing into me. This is it, I thought. Reyad was right. Becoming the food taster had just delayed the inevitable. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Valek fighting his guards as he tried to reach Maken. Too late for me. With a final surge of strength, I mentally reached out. I hit an impenetrable barrier as I felt my consciousness drain. Blackness filled my world. Then Irys's voice was there in my mind, soothing.
Here,
She said.
let me help you.
Pure power flowed into me. I reconstructed my mental shield and deflected Maken's onslaught, pushing him back. He crashed into the opposite wall with a satisfying thud. Confusion reigned in the commander's chambers. Inexperienced with magic as I was, I couldn't restrain Maken. He bolted from the room. With a knife in his hand, Valek fought 3 guards with swords. As I rushed to help Valek, Brazel grabbed my arm and spun me around to face him. He raised his sword. Murder blazed in his eyes. I jumped back to avoid the first swing of his sword and bumped against the commander's bed. I leaped onto the bed to avoid Brazel's next swing. I glanced down. The commander's gaze was still fixed on the ceiling. Brazel's third swing severed one of the bedposts. As I dived from the end of the bed to avoid another blow, I seized the post from the floor. Now I was armed. The post wasn't balanced properly for a bow, but it was thick. Better than nothing. Brazel was a powerful opponent. Each swing of his sword hacked chunks out of my weapon. At first, he scoffed at my attempts to fight him.
What do you think you're doing? You're a skinny nothing. I'll gut you in 2 moves.
When I found my mental zone of power, he stopped wasting his breath. Even sensing his next attack, I still scrambled to stay 1 step ahead of him. My wooden post was no match for his sword. Reyad's ghost materialized in the room. He cheered his father on, trying to distract me. His tactics worked. My back hit the wall. Brazel's sword split my post in half.
You're dead.
With gleeful satisfaction, Brazel pulled his sword back to slash at my neck, but I still held a part of the wood. As his sword swung close, I deflected the weapon downward with my broken post. The tip cut across my waist. The sound of ripping fabric accompanied a line of fire across my stomach. Blood soaked the ripped ends of my uniform shirt. Then Brazel made his first error. Thinking I was finished, he relaxed his guard, but I was still on my feet. I raised my weapon. With desperate strength, I struck him across the temple. We crumpled to the floor together. I gazed at the ceiling, trying to regain my breath. Valek hovered over me. I shooed him away. Find Maken. He disappeared from my view. Once strength returned to my limbs, I examined my wound. Running a finger along the gash, I thought all I needed was some of Rand's glue. Reyad's ghost floated over me, sneering. I couldn't bear lying on the ground with him in the room. Cursing and bleeding, I stood. You, I stabbed a bloody finger at him. Go away.
Make me.
He challenged. How could I fight a ghost? I moved into a defensive stance. He scoffed. No, not a physical fight, a mental one. I thought about what I had accomplished in the year and a half since I had slit Reyad's throat. Overcoming my fears to make friends, confronting my enemies, finding love, how I felt about myself, who I was. I looked into the gilded floor-length mirror of the commander's room. My hair was wild, my shirt soaked with blood, my face streaked with dirt. Almost the same reflection when I first became the food taster. But this time, there was something different. The shadows of doubt were gone. I peered deeper and found my soul. A little tattered and with some holes, but there all the same. It had always been there, I realized with a shock. If Reyad and Maken had truly driven it from me, I would be chained to a floor right now, and not standing over Brazel's unconscious form. I was in control. This new person in the mirror was free of all poisons. I glanced at Brazel. He was still breathing, but I was in charge of him, and of myself. In command, no longer a victim, no longer the rat caught in the metal jaws of a trap. Be gone, I ordered Reyad's ghost. His shocked expression gave me great joy as he vanished. But joy was like a butterfly alighting on a hand. A brief rest before flying away.
Janco's hurt.
Irys's alarmed voice resounded in my skull.
We need a medic. Come now.
Using manacles from a dead guard's belt, I handcuffed Brazel to a heavy bed. Then I bolted from the room. I raced through the corridors. He can't die, I thought. Not Janco. I wouldn't be able to bear his death. Horrible scenarios played in my mind. I was so preoccupied that I rushed right toward Valek and Maken without even recognizing them. They dueled with swords. The reason the scene had taken a while to clarify in my mind was because Maken had the upper hand. Valek's pale face was haggard. He swung his sword as if it was a dead weight. His natural grace had fled, and what remained were sporadic, jerky movements. Maken, on the other hand, was quick and competent, technically accurate, but lacking style. My disbelief and concern grew as I watched the match. What was wrong with Valek? Was it Maken's magic? No. Valek was immune to it, I thought. Then, realization dawned. Valek had said, being close to a magician felt like wading in thick syrup. And Valek had fought 7 guards in the commander's room after spending the last 2 days in the dungeon without food or sleep. Exhaustion had finally caught up to him. Maken's grin widened when he spotted me hovering nearby. He executed a lightning-quick feint, and then lunged. Valek's sword clattered to the floor as a crimson slash snaked up his arm.
What an incredible day!
Maken exclaimed.
I get to kill the famous Valek and the infamous Yelena at the same time.
I triggered my switchblade. Maken laughed. He sent me a magical command to drop my weapon. Just as my hand released the blade, I heard Irys's voice in my head.
Yelena? What's wrong? Did you find the medic?
I need help, I cried in my mind. Power swelled inside me, pushing to break free. I aimed a finger of power toward Maken. His sword dropped from his hand. Terror gripped his face as the magic swaddled him like a baby, then tightened like a noose. He was paralyzed, rooted to the floor.
You rat-spawned daughter of a demon!
Maken cursed.
You're a blight on this earth, an incarnation of hell. You're just like the rest of them. The Sultana bloodline should be burned out, erased, exterminated!
Maken raged on, but I ceased to listen. Valek picked up my switchblade. Maken's curses grew louder and more frantic as Valek approached him. A blur of movement, a shriek of pain. Then, Maken was finally silent. His body sank into a heap on the ground. Valek handed me the bloody knife. With an exhausted bow, he said,
My love, for you.